Hi, both. Thanks for joining us today on our Business Gurus channel, where we will be discussing key business topics to help students grasp the most important elements of their course in preparation for their exams and future career. Let's get started.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into business finance. Specifically, we're looking at cost structures.
Yeah, it's fundamental. If you've ever wondered, why some startups thrive and others just fizzle out, often the answer's right here.
We're zeroing in on one particular piece, fixed costs. We want to get past the jargon and really understand the absolute financial baseline for running any business.
That's right. Whether it's complex software or, like you said, just great coffee, it's about understanding that basic commitment.
So we're tackling that first big question, the one that keeps aspiring owners up at night, probably looking at their bank balance. What do I have to spend? What's the floor before I make even one sale?
Exactly. And if you think about the bigger picture, revenues, costs, profits, fixed costs are kind of like the entry fee. You pay it regardless. It really defines your risk from day one.
Okay, yeah. It sets the stage for everything else, like pricing, hiring, all that.
So understanding this first step is crucial.
All right, let's unpack the definition then. Fixed costs. The sources are pretty clear here. Costs, the business pays, but, and this is the important bit, they do not change with output.
Right. Output meaning, how much you sell, quantity sold.
They're independent of volume.
That phrase is key, independent of volume. Think about a small bakery, whether they bake 10 loaves of bread or 100 loaves today.
Right.
There's a set of costs that just stays the same. It's the cost of having the lights on, the doors open, not the cost of actually selling more bread.
Okay, I think that coffee shop analogy you mentioned earlier really helps here. It makes it concrete.
Yeah, it's a good one. If you run a local coffee spot, you've got bills hitting you every month. Doesn't matter if it rained all day and nobody came in, or if you had a huge rush.
The cost is the same.
Precisely. Sell 100 cups on Monday, maybe 130 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
The amount you owe for these specific fixed costs, it doesn't budge.
Yeah.
You're locked into that cost just to, keep the place running. The space, the basic equipment maybe, it's your overhead.
Got it. So the owner pays these fixed costs and, well, hopes sales are high enough to cover them and then some. But, what's really interesting is thinking about the strategy behind it. Like having high fixed costs versus low fixed costs. What does that mean for the business?
Yes. This is where it gets beyond just definitions and into real insight. The level of your fixed costs. That really shapes the business's risk profile. Its potential rewards, too. There's a finance term for it. Operating leverage.
Operating what now? Okay, let's translate that.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's just think about two extremes. Imagine business A, a huge car factory.
Big operation.
Massive fixed costs, right? The factory itself, maybe it's leased, maybe owned, but still costly. Millions of machinery. Those high-level executive salaries, they're usually fixed contracts. Complex insurance. It all adds up.
So if they have a bad month, sell 0 cars.
They are still drowning in those expenses. It's hugely risky on the downside. Their financial floor is incredibly high. They need massive sales just to break even, just to cover those fixed costs.
Wow, okay. High risk.
Very. But here's the other side of the coin. Because most of their costs are fixed, once they do sell enough cars to cover everything, say they sell that $100,000 first car.
Yeah.
The profit margin on that car and every single one after it is potentially enormous. Because they've already paid for the giant factory, the machines, everything. The fixed costs are covered.
Okay. So high fixed costs mean high risk if sales dip, but potentially massive profits if sales boom.
Exactly. That's the operating leverage. Now, contrast that. Business B, a freelance consultant working from home.
Okay, much smaller scale.
Tiny fixed costs, relatively speaking.
Yep.
A laptop, internet connection, maybe some software subscriptions. That's about it. Their financial floor is super low.
So if they have a bad month, 0 clients. The loss is minimal.
Right. Much, much safer if business slows down. But what about when they have a great month? They can only bill so many hours in a day, right? Their profit potential doesn't explode in the same way. They don't have that massive fixed infrastructure, that leverage working for them. They're safer, maybe, but they miss out on that potential for huge, volume-driven profit jumps.
That's a really important distinction. It's not just about accounting. It's about the whole business model, the strategy. Risk versus reward.
Absolutely. Fixed costs aren't just numbers on a page. They reflect strategic choices about how the company is built.
And those choices show up as real expenses. So let's maybe dig into the specific examples from the source, make it really concrete.
Good idea. We have 5 classic ones listed.
Okay, first up, the most obvious one, probably. Tied to the location. Rent for the premises.
Yeah, rent is like the textbook fixed cost. It's usually a contract. The coffee shop owner signs a lease, agrees to pay, say, $5,000 a month.
Rain or shine.
Exactly. Doesn't matter if they sell 0 coffee or 50,000 cups, the landlord expects that $5,000. It's constant. Fixed.
And sticking with physical space, number 2, business insurance.
Insurance, yeah. They could pay a set premium, could be monthly, quarterly, whatever the policy says. That's to protect your business, your assets.
And that premium, it doesn't usually change based on how busy you were last month, right?
Generally, no. It's based on the underlying risk of the business type, the property value, things like that, not day-to-day sales. So it's a predictable fixed expense for that period.
Okay. Then we move beyond the building itself. Legal stuff, licenses and permits.
Right. The cost just to be allowed to operate legally. Often these are flat fees from the city, the state, maybe federal level.
Like a business license fee.
Exactly. They don't usually scale it based on your revenue. You just pay the set fee to get the permit or license renewed each year or whatever the term is. It's a cost of entry, essentially, fixed.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, here's something that often confuses people, myself included sometimes. What about staff? Is payroll a fixed cost?
That's a really crucial question. And the answer is, it depends. If you're talking about, say, salaried employees, like a full-time store manager or an office admin, their salary is typically set by contract for a certain period.
So that part is fixed, regardless of weekly sales.
Usually, yes. That salary amount doesn't fluctuate with output in the short term. But often when people list pure operational fixed costs, they might focus more on non-payroll items first. Or if they include payroll, they're careful to specify salaried versus hourly, because hourly wages do often change with output, more hours needed if you're busier.
Got it. So for this core list, the focus is often on things like our fourth example, loan repayments.
Exactly. Loan repayments are very clearly fixed. If the business took out a loan, maybe for that big coffee roaster or just startup capital, the bank sets a repayment schedule.
And that payment is the same every month.
Right. The bank doesn't care if you had a slow month or a great month. They expect that agreed upon payment. It's fixed debt servicing.
Okay. And the fifth one listed is marketing and advertising. This one sometimes feels a bit less fixed.
Yeah, this one needs a bit more precision. When we list it here as fixed, we're usually talking about marketing costs that are budgeted as a set amount.
Like a retainer.
Exactly. Like hiring a marketing agency for, say, $3,000 a month to manage your social media or SEO. That $3,000 is a fixed commitment for that month.
Even if that specific month's campaign doesn't bring in many sales, you still pay the $3,000.
Correct. It's treated as a strategic, budgeted expense that's fixed in amount for that period, regardless of the immediate sales it generates. Now,
Right.
if you were doing something like, say, pay-per-click ads, where you literally pay based on how many people click, that cost would fluctuate daily with performance. That behaves more like a variable cost.
Okay. So the type of marketing spend matters for classification.
It does, but for foundational fixed costs, we often include those pre-agreed budgeted marketing amounts.
That clarifies it nicely. So looking across all five, rent, insurance, licenses, loans, and that budgeted marketing, the common element is they don't depend on the quantity sold.
Exactly, that's the thread. They represent that baseline financial hurdle you have to clear before volume even matters.
They set the floor.
They absolutely set the floor. Once you know your total fixed costs, you know the minimum revenue needed just to keep your head above water each month. It's the first critical number.
So bringing it back to you, the listener, what this all means is you should now have a clearer picture of fixed costs. Not just what they are, but also why the level of those costs is such a strategic thing. High fixed costs versus low fixed costs.
And connecting that to the bigger picture. Understanding your fixed costs tells you a lot about how resilient your business might be in a downturn, or how quickly profits could soar in an upturn. It's really foundational financial analysis.
It's powerful stuff, actually. Now,
Yeah.
this deep dive has been all about the costs that stay the same regardless of volume. But the source material also mentions the other side of the coin, variable costs.
Right, the costs that do change.
So that raises a pretty important question, doesn't it? If fixed costs are the solid foundation, how does adding in variable costs, the costs that go up or down with every single item you sell, how does that change the game?
Yeah, how does that combination affect day-to-day profitability? And maybe even more importantly, how does it influence your pricing strategy?
Exactly. Understanding that contrast, that interplay between fixed and variable, well, that seems key to moving beyond just covering costs and actually figuring out how to optimize and really maximize your profit.
Thanks to both of you for joining us today. You've been listening to the Business Gurus. Let's now hand it over to you. What further questions do you have based on what we've discussed so far? Leave a comment and we'll get back to you right away. If you haven't already, hit that follow for more business tips.